Hi, it's Elise Lunan, host of Pulling the Thread, and today I'm talking to my favorite numerologist, Janine Slome. So, Janine is an incredible numerologist and an intuitive, and I had a fascinating reading with her last year, which you'll hear a little bit more about toward the end of our conversation. Today, Janine shares some of the background of numerology. It has a fascinating history, and she explains why the practice can serve as a potent portrayal of life and how you can use it as a map to guide you. We also talk about different types of karma, where karma comes from, and yeah, what we each might do about the karma that we have been served with in this life. Throughout the conversation, Janine also shares several of her broader cultural and global predictions for our future. This is a bit of a wild one, but I think you will enjoy it. How are you? I'm so excited about this.
Yes, I am too. I've been looking forward to it and I'm intrigued of what you want to ask me and what you want to pick my brain about today because there's so
Yeah,
much going on.
there is so much going on. I want to talk mostly today. We'll just dive in. We can cut anything and any preamble.
Yeah,
Um, but I thought it would be helpful for people who maybe have an association with numerology as sort of like adding up the digits of their birth or whatever it may be, for you to explain the how you do use numerology and its deep roots, which I think are
yeah,
fascinating. And then I would
yeah,
love to dive into what's happening collectively. We're in different parts of the world, though we're all
yeah.
connected. And you and I are connected
Yes.
through some, I don't know. As you know, I have a strong tie to South Africa. So,
Very, you're very special to me because of that.
so I guess,
Okay.
yeah. And South Africa, I feel like, is its own strange vortex at this moment.
It is.
Um, and maybe I feel that way only because my dad's a South African Jew like you, but
Yes,
here we
yes,
are. All right.
absolutely.
So
All
let's do
right.
that.
And
Yeah.
did you want to go into the origins again or
Yeah. I think that's helpful for people to understand the context in which you approach numerology and what these years mean for us individually and then collectively. I think that's helpful if you don't mind.
okay? I'm sorry, I've made a few notes because I
Great.
can't remember the BC dates and the whatever, but
Me
I was just,
neither.
so I think I just want to start with the origins of numerology. And the irony is that, it actually first showed up in the ancient civilizations of Atlantis and Lemuria, of which some people don't really believe that there was an Atlantis, but there are some explanations that it was connected to that. But the earliest sort of reference to it was actually from Mesopotamia. And the irony is, long before I ever started doing numerology, my earliest past life memory was in Mesopotamia as some kind of peasant woman. And I don't know, maybe if I had some gypsy caravan and I was doing my numbers from there, but it's a very interesting thing that Mesopotamia was the first place where they started using numbers and systems as a divinity, as a divinity for things. And then it went to Egypt, and the Egyptians used it in architecture, in the building of the pyramids. So it wasn't properly formed at that stage. I think Pythagoras is still regarded the real father of numerology, and he was around the time of, I think it was about 550 BC. So he's really been noted as the real father of it. But it's so interesting when you look into India. India have an Indian numerology system which they call Jyotish. And it informs both Hindu and Buddhist practice. And it's the first time that referencing was made to the letter of the name having a corresponding digit. So, like the E for Elise would be a 5, the L would be a 3. So, they were the first ones who really started putting that together. And it's amazing because obviously my work is so diverse. And I had this beautiful Indian couple who had this beautiful traditional Indian wedding. And then when they had their baby, they all go to the priest to get a special naming for their baby. That's not necessarily the name that the baby is known by in the world, but I just think it's something that's really quite sacred and quite beautiful. And I've got a Ghanaian lady as well in Washington who's about to give birth, and she and I were chatting, and she says that the Ghanaians give a day name to the baby. So if the baby is born on the 14th of May, for instance, that baby will be assigned a Ghanaian day name. So, if that name is not really used and known in numerology, then it doesn't really hold value. But I just still think it's a beautiful side that we haven't really seen, and I'm wanting to explore how these Indian names or these Ghanaian names somehow interact with the chosen name or the way that the person is known. So I think that's the next frontier of my study is to look into that. So then we had the Chaldean numerology, which is a very famous numerology system, which was actually set up by the Catholic Church of the New Babylonian era.
Hmm.
And the Chaldeans, in normal numerology, everything goes from 1 to 9. The lettering is 1 to 9. Those are the values. The Chaldeans decided no, they're doing it from 1 to 8 because 9 they consider as being one of the most sacred numbers, so they don't use it in numerology. So, as you can see, there are so many different systems and different interpretations of how the numerology is applied. But the one that I work with most is the Pythagorean numerology. And if anybody has ever seen their charts, if I've ever shown anyone a chart, it's full of grids and it's got diamonds, and it really does look like a Pythagorean theorem the way it's all drafted. So yes, it's an incredibly interesting tool, and I think with me I am a healer and I am an intuitive, but I'm also a skeptic, and I think that's why the numerology held so much intrigue for me because it's such an accurate portrayal of life in our personal lives, life in what's going on in the world, and all of that.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting too when I speak, I've done a session with you, and when people and I have my skepticism too, and there's definitely sort of a scale of quality, particularly in the world of intuitives, where some people are like, get an occasional psychic hit, of course, but mostly maybe don't have that well tuned of a muscle. But it's always interesting in the context of exquisite readers like you, or amazing astrologers, or people who are really deft with systems like human design.
Yeah.
And when people push back, I'm like, you're underestimating sort of the quality, the accuracy of description when it comes from someone who really doesn't know you.
Yeah.
And you know, and there's something about its accuracy, and it's not wishful thinking either, right? Like, it's not like you're like,
No.
Elise, you're gonna win a lottery ticket and you're gonna, it's grounded in real life experience, past and present, in a way that is, it must be so fun and affirming
Yes.
to accurately reflect people who you do not
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And for me, the numerology chart holds the entire blueprint, the full-blown potential for your life and for your incarnation in this lifetime. Whether you choose to work with that or not, that remains up to you. And that's sometimes where I might have a little bit of an argument with the client because I see that they're actually not working the numbers in the positive and in the best way that they could fulfill their karmic destiny, and they might be working it to the punitive or the diminished version of it. And that hurts me as a soul deeply when I see or when I hear people talk about family members that have just not gotten the karma, that have just never used their free will to take up the magnificent opportunity that's in that chart. And that's why I love my work is I love presenting that beautiful opportunity. And yes, there are bad things and there are good things, but it's all about reframing it from a higher perspective so that the soul can choose to work harmoniously with those numbers or to push back against the tide and have an incredibly, incredibly difficult life.
Yeah. I don't want to jump ahead yet to the collective, but it
Yes.
reminds me too of there's this Sufi master teacher, Llewellyn Von Lee, who I love. I love his work and I love him as a person. And we were chatting, and now he's internal. He doesn't do podcasts or anything anymore, or really sort of engage that much with the external world. And he's sad in part because he's like in his visions, he has watched exactly what you're describing, this capacity or this potential for us to transition to a new era at a higher level than we are, and we're taking the hardest path. And so I think for much of his life, he was like trying to urge us to not make this so painful or difficult, that there was a way of doing this without what we're currently experiencing. And we've somehow abandoned the better choice. So we'll get to that. I don't know if you agree with that or
Yes.
disagree with that, but let's talk about sort of on the personal level, the way that this lands in a sort of the way that you're divining or creating a chart for someone. And can you talk about sort of the years, the cycles, and so on and so forth?
Okay, so what I usually start with is the ruling pathway, and the ruling pathway we get by adding the all the digits in the date of birth, and then we keep reducing. So let's say it adds up to 52, then we say 5 and 2 is 7, and we keep reducing to a single digit. And that is the ruling pathway. That accounts for 50% of the reading. It shows the fundamental journey that the person is on and what they're going to sort of experience and what sort of stuff they're going to come up with, whether they're a creative or more scientific in nature. So the ruling pathway is extremely important. But what I find even more important is when I take the values in the letters of your name, like the E is the 5, the L is a 3, and I take those values and I get what we call an SPD. An SPD code is a soul personality destiny code. And this holds all the hidden dreams, the potentials, all of these kind of things. So the soul number is the inner way of being. So we're not all outwardly the way we are on the inside. So the inner way of being is our dreams, our desires, our inner things, our insecurities, all of those kind of things. The personality is how we present to the world and how other people perceive us. And then the destiny we get by integrating the personality together with the drives and the dreams of the soul. And we add that all up together, and then we get a destiny number. And that is, so it's a bit like the human code or the PIN code or something like that. And I often say to my clients, I'm sorry for reducing you to a code, but you are a code. And that code is very, very powerful. And furthermore to that is when I look at your name, I put all those letters into a grid. And if you are missing a 5, for instance, let's say you don't have an E in your name, so you're missing a 5 in your grid, that is a karmic lesson. That is a significant, what we call a karmic debt, and that is something that you have to overcome in this lifetime. So we find those little karmic debts, then we add them all together, and then we get a massive karmic accumulation, which sounds very frightening, but it's wonderful. And often when I speak to the karmic accumulation on a deep deep, deep level, my clients resonate and they say, I know what you're talking about. But I cannot tell you how deep it is. And and often they'll say to me, but nobody knows that about me. But it's such a deep, and there are 20, that is one thing where there are 23 different types of karmic accumulation. So it's not just random here and there that you've got a five and a this, and it really is very targeted and very important. And it was actually quite sad, in the early days of numerology, and specifically, I would say from the 80s, the 90s, even when I finished studying in the late, just before, I think it was about 2008, we were told not to discuss karma with our clients. We were told that that was an area of sanctity and that we should not discuss karma with our clients. And so for the first few years when I started doing this, I didn't discuss the karma. But what I found is I started to slowly integrate it because I felt intuitively it was important for people to understand their karma and where they fit in this whole grand scheme of things, and what their karmic mandate or potential is in the current consciousness and in what we're moving towards. So I have allowed it. And so it says on my website, a karma specialist. I've only pulled that in the latter years, I'd say in the last 10 to 12 years, because I do believe it's a very important component of what we're dealing with now in
Yeah.
the world.
Let's talk about that for a minute and sort of this 20 types of karma and the way that it's allotted to us. And is that does that ladder up to this idea that we need to do our part or our share and there's versions of all of it? And where does the karma originate? I mean, I know we generate a tremendous amount of shadow, all of us,
Yeah,
every
yeah,
day. Is
yeah.
it that accumulation of wars and genocides and pillaging and every animal that's died to keep us alive? What is it?
I think the only way I can answer that question, because I've been thinking about it quite significantly at the moment, I'm seeing a lot of clients coming up with what we call a 16-7. So there are certain numbers in numerology we can't reduce. The 13-4, the 16-7, the 14-5, and the 19-10. So those are karmic malefics you never reduce.
Mm.
And what I've noticed, there's more and more people that are coming in with a 16-7 karmic. It's coming up somewhere in the chart. It doesn't have to come up in the karmic accumulation. It can come up in the ruling path. It can come up in the soul position. And what I'm finding is most of these individuals lived during the very much in the Renaissance medieval times, where the church was the law of the land. And the church was very punitive. I mean, there weren't modern forms of government. And in those days, there was a chronic abuse of power by the church. It was like, do as I say and not as I do. And it was also, if you had any emotions, you almost needed to be committed, or you had the devil in you or something like that. And what I'm finding is a lot of those souls coming back onto the earth plane now to transcend the dogma of religion, of conformed religion. And
Mm.
they're usually born into homes where there's heavy um, religious, so they've either gone to a Catholic school. Last night I met with somebody who was raised in the Church of Scientology and who has run a mile since she's been in her 20s. So they've come into heavy religious dogma in this lifetime, so much so that it has forced them out of their head and into a heart-based relationship with God, the universe, the cosmos, whatever you want to call it. And I find that very fascinating, that there's so many of those souls incarnating at the moment that are transcending dogma and that are bringing new principles to light on spiritual concepts and ideas.
Mm. That's fascinating. Okay. Thank you. That's
Yeah,
really helpful. Yeah. So that
yeah.
people understand what we're talking about. So it might be sort of an ancestral or intergenerational reincarnation line that's specific.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there are souls incarnating at specific times for specific reasons. Like for me, I think a lot of the souls that died from COVID, and this might be a very controversial statement, but I feel like some of those souls elected to take some of the karma off the planet.
Mm,
um and and they did. I mean, it hasn't gone very far in helping the planet at this stage, but yes, there are, and also, in South Africa here, we've got the most tremendous, this rhino poaching, our rhinoceros. There's virtually nothing left. I mean, it's all being used for different medicinal purposes and whatever. And somebody once said to me, and it was a thought I really had to think about, is maybe the rhinos have chosen to leave the earth plane. And for me, that resonated so much. And I think that there are a lot of animals that have chosen to leave the earth plane because the energies here are just too heavy. Or certainly they're going to start lightening up quite soon, but it's been very, very heavy on this planet. And there are some species that have chosen to leave.
mm. That's so interesting and heartbreaking, and
Mm,
also
it is,
whether
but it's
it's
beautiful for
choice.
them.
I like the idea of it being a choice rather than a
Yes,
forced extinction. I mean, that is a little bit of a relieving thought, right?
absolutely.
Can you, before I want to pull that thread that you just laid down, that
Yeah.
things are going to lighten, but before we go there, can you talk a bit about sort of the cycle of years that we go
Oh,
through?
the personal years. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, based on your date of birth, and the current year, it's 2026, everybody's in a personal year. And you can be in a first year, second year, third year, all the way to the ninth year. And after a nine, we cross back into a one. So, our lives go in cycles of nine. And each year has its theme, its story, what needs to happen. And if you understand the trajectory of the year, you'd be able to work with it rather than against it. And when it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, it can be incredibly, incredibly challenging. But if you know how to work with the energy, you're not going to suffer as badly as someone who doesn't know what the hell has happened to them, why all of a sudden the wheels have completely come off. And the spiritual cycle runs from October to October, and a lot of people question me on that. And that is the Jewish New Year, but it is also the ancient biblical calendars that worked on the lunar solar logos. The modern day calendars work only on solar.
Yeah.
And the Gregorian calendar was developed by, I think I wrote his name here, Pope Gregory the Eighth in 1582. So I always say to people, it's a modern day calendar. It holds no relevance in this type of work. And so, I mean, even if you think of America and the changes your country experienced, it literally commenced in October 2024 when things started to change quite dramatically. Um, it wasn't before then, and it wasn't far out of then, but it was around about that time that things, and we will always see global things. I mean, those parachutes that flew into that Hamas flew into, I
Yeah.
don't know, Jerusalem or Gaza, or those that happened in October, and that was the starting point of something that was going to be quite prolific. So yes, I still work on an October to September cycle.
Got it. So if you are born in November like I am, then I'm born in my 1 year. Is that accurate?
No,
Well,
so
that might be two in the weeds, but yeah.
okay, so I am currently in my third year. All
Okay.
right. You could be in your fifth year. I don't have your chart in front of me at the moment. You could be in your fifth year.
Okay.
Do you have your chart with you?
I feel like we were debating. I don't know. I need to go look, but I feel like we were debating at length which year I'm in. But but regardless, we won't go down those weeds because I think I'm like it was on a cusp or so. But yes, anyway, so but it's helpful context because when you were explaining it to me, and I think we sort of nailed my year based on events,
Yes. Yeah.
where it was like, okay, this completely makes sense. And some years
Yeah.
are for seed planting, some are for harvesting, some are for composting, right?
It's it's very cyclical. There are years where health comes into the spotlight. If someone is in the fourth year, then health comes straight into the spotlight, and there's a feeling of repression and limitation. If you're in the first year, you are in the year of new beginnings. I mean, the sun has come out, it's a new day, and the opportunities available are endless. And so when someone's in the first year, I say to them, you need to get going. You can't go on holiday now. You need to be present in your life and make use of this incredible energy gateway that's opened up from October um, to September to mobilize new projects, to meet new people, to make, because what you do in the first year would set the course of your life for the next 9 years. So they are incredibly important cycles, and if you understand how to work with them, you can really make them work in your favor.
Yeah. Okay. So let's pull that thread. Let's talk about the collective and the year that we're in. And I mean, I don't want
Okay.
you to give us false hope, and I want an accurate depiction of what's happening, which is very scary and painful and uncertain. And in many ways, I know we
Um,
can never know how the story ends. But what's
yeah.
happening? Where are we?
So, I listen to Pamela Gregory. I listen to a whole bunch of different divinities and healers and whatever. And most of us are speaking the same language, but through different divinities and different mediums. And so, what I want to say from a numerological perspective, everything up until the end of until 1999 was characterized by one number, one. The 1100s, the 1200s, the 1300s, it's all been characterized by one. One is the sun, it's the masculine, it's I lead, I rule, you follow. It's that kind of energy. It's quite self-serving. And the one the one energies stopped when we hit 2000, and now we've gone into the two energy, which is the divine feminine. And all of us children born in the 1900s, we've all got 1 and 9 in our charts, which is world domination and war. 1910 in numerology is the number for an abuse of power. And so what we're seeing played out right now in the world is the remnants of our generation and what we put into the world. The hope herein is that the twos are coming in, and the twos foster co-creation, community-led governance. It's a completely different consciousness system. It's inclusive, it's kind, it's diplomatic, and so I always talk about 2020 as being an important year, and I'm not sure where I heard this, but I love to delineate the word COVID-19 because jointly, the world was in it together. V was the 22nd letter of the alphabet, 2020, when we went into lockdown. Id is the Latin word for ego, and 19 is the fall of the 1900s. So all of us, so as I'm saying, all of us kids born in the 1900s, we're holding this energy of an abuse of power, and everything was fine in the universe until we hit the double twos. And then when we hit the 2020s and we hit the double twos, the old world firmly collided with the new, and the universe is busy churning out these old moded structures and things that are not working for us anymore. And so I find it an incredibly exciting time to be alive. I must be honest, during COVID, I asked the universe, I said, I don't know what I was thinking when I arrived here in the 1970s. If I knew there was going to be a COVID and all of this drama, I'm not sure if I would have chosen to incarnate. But now it's getting exciting, because now we're starting to summit. And so the interesting thing, and just taking this a step further, is that in 2017 was the first year of a new 9-year cycle, which ended in 2025. And the irony of this is that it coincided with the year of the snake. Now, the ninth year is the year of loss and endings. It's the end of the old way of doing things. It's the release of the lower self. It's all of those kind of things. And the fact that and you see, this is how they all intertwined. In Chinese divinity, it was the year of the snake, which was the shedding of the old. And so I've been feeling since the Gaza thing, I've been feeling we've been starting to summit, like we're getting to the top of the hell of what's going on, and the fear and what everybody's going through, but we're actually starting to come down the other side. And I know it doesn't look like that at the moment, but now we're in a global first year, and this is a year of new beginnings. And we're seeing these wars and we're seeing all this stuff going on all over the place, but Gaia is healing her own karma,
Say more.
which is, pardon,
I said, say more.
I wrote it down because it's just the most beautiful, and it's just such a helpful thing to understand. Gaia is shedding her own trauma right now. And it would be so beautiful if we could all hold a space for her while she does this. I've actually got goosebumps just talking about it, because it is the final purge. And the other thing that's becoming very evident is that we are moving away from linear time and back to circular time. I'm not sure if you understand those concepts.
No,
All
I
right.
want to know more about all of this. I want to know what Gaia's cart. I mean, I do feel like Gaia. I mean, obviously furious, right? Like
Yes,
it's the thrashing, and
absolutely.
it's if this is sustained, it's not survivable, right?
Absolutely.
And so I want to know about that, and then talk to us about linear versus circular time.
So linear time posits, and I think we've all been following linear time. Linear time posits that we're going from A to B, and B is the finite, and that's the end of the story. Um, and circular time says that no, we move in cycles. An embryo is formed, it's then raised, it then dies, and then another embryo comes in. And so farmers today are the closest members of sedentary souls that are working on circular time. Now, circular time, because it's working with the seasons and what's going on. And what I'm loving about circular time is that seconds are not seconds, they are heartbeats. Days are not days, they are sunrises. Weeks are not weeks, they are moon cycles. Quarters are not quarters, they are seasons.
Yeah.
And I think we need to understand that there is a flow and things are cyclical. We're not getting to this end point where the world's going to blow up and that's going to be the end and someone's going to push the atomic bomb and that's it. I don't see that. I just see us moving through a cyclical period where we are shedding a lot of karma. Gaia is shedding a lot of her karma, and there's always rebirth.
Yeah. Well, it's so beautiful. And it goes to that the idea of transitioning from something that's solar masculine, right? This up into the right dominance based growth curves that now we're living
Yeah,
our lives by, like optimize every hour to some sort of outcome, which is death, friends. Like we're not, it's
yes,
inescapable.
yes,
Versus I think something that women, but based on our bodies, come to more easily, right? We cycle with the earth. We
absolutely,
move with we feel it in our bodies. We create.
absolutely.
and we do the full cycle inherently, whereas men, what, seed? Um,
Yes.
so it is actually, and I think that all of us understand this unfolding spiral when you look at your life, and we've all had those moments, right? Sometimes you call
Yeah.
them deja vu, but other times you're like, wow, stuck in this story, trapped in this pattern. Here I am
Yeah.
again, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like different storyline. How do I graduate? How do I get out of this or transform it?
And and to take that further and going back to the personal cycles, you would then, some people would say to me, well, Janine, why do I have to go through a 7 year every 9 years? Why do I have to go and do the seventh year every 9 years? Well, because conditions have changed and you've reached another level of maturity. And what I find is the seventh year learnings for me of the last, if I think of the last 3 decades, it's all been around a similar theme, but I've had a different posture towards it based on my maturation or based on my level. And I did think in my last seventh year, I said, I even said to my therapist, I said, I feel like I've gone 1,000 steps back. And she says to me, no, Janine, you've actually gone forward. You just don't realize it now. But yes, cyclically, things are going to keep coming up, especially with our karma that we need to look at. But then we look at it from different paradigms and we look at it from different circumstances and maturation dates and all of that kind of thing. But it's all one big cycle. And I really do feel that the future and I am going to reference South Africa here. Um, we're going back to the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, and artisanal work will be prized over intellect. And we will want to go to flourishing local markets where there's fresh produce, grass fed meat, as opposed to going to a supermarket where it's traveled 5,000 miles across a country in a cold store and a whatever. It just doesn't make sense anymore.
No.
And I think more and more people are waking up and realizing how things are becoming very distasteful and don't make sense anymore.
And very artificial,
Um,
right? Like you when you can't.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think about this too as a writer, and how powerful AI is, and how much power, just and how wild it is, and it actually anyway. And what who am I? What am I if people can replicate how I write, which is based actually, on I was just reading a story, a newsletter today from Susan Cain, and she was saying that because AI was trained on writers like C.S. Lewis, who use this three clause, and lots of M dashes. This is how I write. This is how I learn. So I,
Yes.
yeah. So it's like the M dash, I guess, is the signature of AI. The connected clauses. In three-part. Anyway, it was fascinating because I'm having my own confrontation with it. And then
Yes.
as I think it through, too, it's like, okay, but, and I obviously have lived my own experience. What I do is synthesize or sort of think across different categories of thinkers and pull things together in new and novel ways.
Yes.
And I've exercised my brain through almost 50 years of doing this, which isn't so replicable. And I think that people will come to me not because I'm like, here's a bunch of knowledge, but to see the hand, right? To see the hand in it, to
Yeah.
what you're saying. Like, this is how I'm putting these things together.
Yes.
And yeah,
And
there's just so much, right? Yeah.
I, I just want to thank you for your curiosity. I mean, I think your curiosity knows no bounds, and you've gone down many different streets and many different speakers and all of that. But it's formulating a picture, and that's what I'm saying is that we're all talking about the same thing. We're all in our own different ways. We're all going back to the same thing, and I think humanity is soul searching. It's coming back to itself.
Yes.
It gave its power away so freely to so many people, to in the Middle Ages to the church. In modern ages there are other institutions of power that have held us in subjection, and I think that the inner self really needs to wake up now.
Yes. Yeah. And what makes me uniquely human, and why am I incarnated in this body, and what am I here to do, and what's my specific plan and contribution, that karma
Absolutely.
to clear, whatever it is, the gifts to bear. Notice I love this conversation in part because people who listen, you're doing it where you're like, and the I Ching might say this or whatever, like these common languages
That
that are same, different language to describe the same phenomena, the same patterns, the same emergences.
Absolutely,
And it's also wild. I
absolutely.
think it's undeniable that every part of of this planet is going through its own events, and yet simultaneously it's the emergence of these strong men, right? The Putins, the
Yeah.
Netanyahus, the
I
Ayatollah, the
didn't want
Trumps. Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
I didn't want to mention the names, but yes,
Yes.
that's
So it's this collective pattern of
those
that. Yeah.
those are the 19s. Those are the ones who have got 1910 in sole positions, in ruling positions. Um, those are the 19s that are hanging on for dear life to an old system that is unfortunately just disintegrating before our eyes. And while it can be very fearful for people, I always want to just try and lift people into hope that there is a cycle to this, and this is not the end. This
Yeah.
is so not the end. We might feel like we're on the brink of another major world war, which I don't personally feel that we are. I think it will be scuppered just in time. But I but we've been through these cycles before. We've been through these fears before. But when, as a humanity, do we eventually transmute it and understand that just for today, the sun is still shining,
Yeah.
the grass is still glistening, the birds are still singing, and Gaia is still moving, and we're
Yeah.
working.
Well, it's interesting too. And again, I'm not a geopolitics expert, so let's be real here. But
Yes,
watching what's
absolutely.
escalating in the Middle East and trying to understand the implications for oil and gas and data centers and sort of what's happening with energy, and why this looming World War III is so threatening to the global economy. And then going back to this Gaia karmic debt, it's also this forcing factor of like, look at our dependence on these
Yeah.
non-renewable energy sources, and the dependence of our economy when there are other options, when clean is so much cheaper. And so I also am like, is this it? Is this mechanism that's erupting and exploding because this is not a supportable system, and we know that, but this has just been it's been holding us by the throat. I don't know.
So I wanted to reference something that Pam Gregory said, and I'm just wondering if it's right here. She spoke about the 1993, which I'd never heard of, but I was quite fascinated by it. It was called the 1993 Disclosure Project. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever heard about it.
Nope.
It was founded by Dr. Stephen Greer, and what he attempted to do was to disclose suppressed information on UFOs and non-conventional energy technologies. I am absolutely of the opinion that there is a non-conventional energy technology that is as clean as anything, that will run our cars, that has been suppressed. And this whole big drama about oil and all of this is just lip service for something that's actually there. And Pam was talking about something about this, the Disclosure Project possibly coming to light in July this year.
Fascinating.
Pam, I hope I'm quoting you correctly, but
Watch this
those
space.
were my
Yeah.
notes. Those were my notes I made. And it's interesting. I didn't believe in extraterrestrial life. I think until about 7 or 8 years ago, I thought, what nonsense! There can't be such a thing. But the more information that's coming to light, the more I feel like we are being supported. It's not a threat. We are being
Yeah.
supported by universal wisdom, things that are outside of our planet that are trying to come in. And I absolutely know for a fact that there is a Taurus energy model that is the most simple thing in the world that doesn't require um, draining resources from the planet.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think that I just had Avi Loeb on the podcast too, who's a astrophysicist at Harvard. He runs a Gemini program, and he's been talking about these Oumuamua, and I can't remember the name of the latest one, these interstellar objects. And people are so quick to say, this is a comet. It's a naturally, and they're
Yeah,
not behaving like comets. And his point is, I
no,
think we can't rule out that this is extraterrestrial technology that might be billions of years old. We don't know what it is. But it does feel like this converging, and it feels like people are ready. I don't want to say new interest, but the amount of people, and you know this because you read for
yeah,
people who I think everyone would be
yeah,
surprised to know rely on these systems. And I'm always like, you don't understand how many high profile CEOs, tech people are just like one phone call away from their person.
yeah,
But it feels like in the collective, that suddenly there is just, and it's been going on for a minute, but that people are
yeah,
like, okay, this is weird. I concede there's something happening beyond
yeah, yeah,
just our hands, in the hands of some
absolutely.
maniacal world leaders. There's something emerging, a destruction of something old for the emergence of something new. And I think too, like,
Mhm.
I don't know if the Epstein files are shaking South Africa the way that they're shaking so many countries in Europe and here, although we have yet to
Yeah,
see sort of the perp walk that we desire. I'm
yeah,
confident in time it will happen, but I also am like, it feels terrifying,
yeah.
and I'm like, it's exposed. It's like pulling the root system out of the ground that you always knew was there because you could sense it, and then to say it feels terrifying, and yet it's exposed. It's all coming up to be healed.
It's terrifying. It's devastating for the victims, but it's so exciting at the same time that all these things are surfacing. It's like it's all coming out of the mud, and it's in plain sight now. And and I just think that is what needs. We need to be fully. We need to know what's going on in the world. And this disclosure report holds thousands and thousands of records of pilots, of commercial airliners that have made testimony of things that they've seen that are just not that are not explainable. And I just think there's been so much suppression to keep us in some kind of subjugation that the more these things are revealed and the more it comes out, the better it is. South Africa is an interesting one because the exposure has been happening to us for the last 30 years already. And the worms have come out the cans, and we've seen it all. So it's not a very new thing here. It's something that's really taken place, and that was the other thing I wanted to mention to you. The chakras in our body, there are chakras all over the universe that correspond to the chakras in our body. In 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 Africa, Egypt is the throat chakra, which is voice, and the whole of South Africa is the solar plexus chakra, which churns out all the racial hatred and tension for the entire universe. So our country was involved in doing that job for the universe for many, many years. And when everybody spoke about 2012, when there was going to be this awakening, the world was going to end and all of that, what was actually happening is that the portals started turning and opening, and that the karma has gone back to where it came from. We are no longer doing this for the world here. Things are peaceful here. People generally are getting on. There's still a lot of inequality, financial inequality in the country. There's still instability, but the stories of white monopoly capital and these things that were thrown around so flagrantly in from about 2010 to 2019, it stopped. It's absolutely stopped, and it's kind of gone back to the monarchy. It's gone back to the US. It's gone back to the UK. It's in so many different formats. And this is also an interesting phenomenon that's happening at the moment, is that these portals are opening and they're doing different things in the world, in exposing and in cleaning out the debris from under us.
Yeah. Um, that's beautiful. I write about South Africa a bit in my next book. And in the context of the system called spiral dynamics, because it was deployed there and used by de Klerk and Mandela during that transition, which
That's right.
obviously they won a Nobel Peace Prize for that. Um,
Yeah.
and Mandela in particular is like the one of the greatest spiral wizards who's walked the planet. But that transition, avoiding a civil war, I mean, it's like an incredible achievement, that I think is also sort of a harbinger of what transitions to new models can look like at that highest
Mm,
path versus the
correct.
lowest path, right? That seems
Yeah,
to be our preferred option. Um,
absolutely. And
yeah,
absolutely. And all I just want to say to people is that I honestly feel the fear, and I, I say to them, just dip into the news just for a second, just to see what's going on, and then pull out, because it's too much. It's just actually too much for all of us. We've all got very dysregulated nervous systems at the moment. It's too much information. Obviously, we need to be concerned for our brothers and sisters across the planet and all of that. But we also need to be able to transcend the fear and rise up into our individuality and into our purpose as a humanity and where we're going.
yeah. And there's this, like, I think in the context of what you were describing earlier with this sort of explosion of farmers markets and handcrafted artisanal goods. And it's
Beautiful.
this global consciousness and awareness then regrounded into the garden that we can tend and reach, right? Into this local action. We're seeing a lot of beautiful moments of that here in the US and in Minnesota and so on and so forth. It's you take care of your neighbors,
Fantastic.
you take care of your
Yes.
land, you take care of your family, you take care of your community. And that might be sort of the edge of what you can reach, but that's enough. And that amplified across many of us is quite powerful.
I'm so pleased it's happening there, because it's happening in many areas, and we're moving towards community-led governance. That's the future. I can't, as you say, we can't be prescriptive, but in an ideal world, we're going to need to start siloing and coming together as communities to manage our areas. And I've noticed here in South Africa, there are no services. So, local communities are getting together, and the one guy fixes the potholes, and the other guy switches on the lamp on the light, the street lamp, because no one else is doing it. So they're formulating little communities to look after and to mow the lawn on their little islands and all of that. It's because they're proud of their city. And if the government's not going to do it, then silos are starting to do it. And I think that's one of the biggest. I'm probably going to get crucified for saying this, but no government is coming to save its country
No,
or its people.
no.
And the sooner people realize that your government is not coming to save you, the sooner you will start galvanizing in smaller communities and start looking at community-led governance.
Yeah. Well, I think we've had this childlike dependence, which is completely
Yeah,
understandable. And I'm grateful for the shared services that we have, through taxpayer dollars here in the US.
absolutely.
And yet we also
Absolutely.
recognize how all of those things often fall so short. And yeah,
Yeah,
being in LA, being in a fire community, it hasn't happened to the extent that I had hoped. But what was seemed clear was, guys, we need to. No one's checking our brush clearance. Like, this has to be a community response, and we need to pool resources
absolutely.
and hire firefighters
Yeah,
to come and clear. And like, this is on us.
yeah.
So I hope, I mean, in a small way, that
And
this,
and to set up clothing for displaced people and all of that. I
yeah,
mean, when I watch things like that, my heart is full. I mean, to see that, and that's humanity. That's
yes,
humanity coming forward and doing its thing, and it's glorious in
yeah. And there's like
its
such a
wisdom.
desire, such a desperation, really, to serve and show up. And I think we all want that so badly, to feel the impact of our own personal power in keeping each other safe and cared for and loved. And all right, if that's what's
Absolutely.
coming, I'm here for it.
So we've just got to go through the final purge. I think we're, as I say, it's summiting. We're starting, so like we couldn't see what was on the other side of this mountain. And now we're coming down the other side and we're starting to see what a new day could actually look like. Um, and and this is exciting, is that, and I'm finding people are waking up now very quickly. COVID was supposed to do that, but unfortunately COVID finished and we all went back to our selfish ways, and we were driving around hooting with road rage and everything, and kind of that didn't do it. So then we had to have a whole level of another stuff happen in order for us to transmute and to try and to find the kindness and to find the humanity again.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And
It's
that's
funny.
and to support Gaia in her healing.
Yes. Um, And it's interesting. I feel like COVID, we were so quick to be like, we don't want to talk about COVID anymore. And like, we're in the post COVID period and
Yeah,
stop. And then I've had
deny.
so many conversations just this week with people who are like, COVID. And I think it's generated a lot of mass psychosis, et cetera. And we now it's
It
time. We got
has.
to go and understand what happened to us.
And I was saying to my husband the other day, I said, prior to COVID, I remember when we used to have friends round, there was so much gaiety and there was so much happiness. And yes, we got a little bit drunk and whatever, but we were happy. And I find now, post COVID, we'll have a lunch, but I, I can sense it. There's like an iron curtain that kind of hangs over it. So you don't fully have fun and you don't fully, because it's almost like, what if tomorrow we go into lockdown, and I'm not saying that that's the thought process. I'm just saying that I feel that our joy has been muted so badly by the PTSD of COVID that we don't enjoy our interactions with others, and we don't party the way we used to party. And I don't think it's just because I'm getting old. I think I enjoy a good party, but it just doesn't feel appropriate at the moment. And I'm hoping for that day when it does feel appropriate, when we can return to the 1970s Woodstock, where it's free love and it's not the horrible Woodstock that happened thereafter, but the beautiful Woodstock where people just enjoy themselves.
Yeah, I think that we're in a period of protracted grief and
Mhm.
mourning, and we
Yeah,
don't know we don't know what to do with it. But
how
as
to
you
get
said,
out of
it
it.
feels bad to feel good, and
Mm.
yeah, we have to. we have to manage that because we can't, we got to find our joy, maintain our joy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so just, to sort of close this, I just want to say that the 2000s is a wonderful, wonderful era that we've just entered into. It's full of divine intervention. Two is that everyone says they see 11 11s. One and one is two. It's the angelic realm. We have moved into a beautiful, beautiful. We've moved from a very one-dimensional world into a multi-dimensional, colorful world. But we haven't grasped a hold of it yet. But what it promises and what it could be is is just is just so lovely compared to where we've come from. And I can't wait to see our children's leadership and to see what they do with this. Because they were born of this century. They're the ones that have got the twos in their charts by virtue of the fact that they were born in the 2000s. And that's my hope.
I love that. All right, this was so fun. I'm so glad we finally managed to make this happen. Thank you. And
It's only a
I'm gonna hit
pleasure.
you up soon. Go back into I gotta see what's going on. I need a tune up.
Well, all I can say to you is, and I know you've said it publicly now, so I know I can say it publicly, is that you are no longer a lazy layabout that you were in your past lifetime. You are moving in the world and doing your karma. And that for me is the most exciting thing, is to see karma in motion. You are not lazy in this lifetime. So thank God for that. And thank God you took up the
Ah,
mandate and the call, and that you're busy in your life doing wonderful things.
thank you, Janine. It's too funny. When you said that, I almost fell out of my chair back in the day. So funny.
Yes, I remember that. Okay, but we'll have our own time together sometime soon.
Okay. You're wonderful.
All
Thank
right.
you. Have a great night.
Okay, Liz. Lots
All
of
right.
love. All right, honey.
Bye.
Bye.
So it makes me laugh to think about my karma to this day, which, yeah, apparently in my last life, I was an indolent, lazy layabout. And so in this life, I'm counteracting that by being a total workaholic who is exceptionally productive. That's been one of the stakes on which I have laid my personality. And so when she told me that, knowing literally nothing about me except for my first name and a weird email address, I had to laugh. And yeah, it took me, I'd been hearing about her from friends for years. It took me a minute to get on her dance card. We live on opposite sides of the planet too. And even longer to get her on the podcast. She was being coy, but I'm so glad I did. I highly recommend a strategy working session with her to understand what you're going through and what the collective is going through and how those might conspire or conflict to make things extra juiced for you or extra turbulent. I think at these particular moments in time, any guidance we can get is really helpful. All right, friends, I'll see you next time.